I am happy to report that the family of which all the characters of Building Evelyn are based upon are feeling better. 2 weeks ago, they found out they had the coronavirus, all of them. But the doctors in Brazil were able to act fast and providing some medication. They are now all feeling well. Thank you for your concerns. Previously on Building Evelyn. She planned to place the wallet back in his pocket the same way she removed it to ensure he wouldn't stir awake. If she was successful and he asked her about the missing money, she would say he probably lost it when he was drunk. She concluded that it would be good reasoning. But in the case that she wasn't as gentle as she needed to be and he woke up, she knew she would be sorry for her life, as the beating she would get would be severe. Turns out, she had no trouble rolling him slightly and removing his wallet. Hello and welcome to Building Evelyn. This story is based in true events, but written with a bit of fiction. Each chapter of the story is written by a different writer, and each writer not only continues the story using real events and facts, but also puts their own twist on the previous writer's idea to keep the story moving. I am Jackie Pesal, and Chapter 5 was written by me. Mary saw that the girls were playing safely, away from the water, and stayed in the lagoon to chat with her sisters who also went along. She shared with them that she had a chance to talk to their father about their mother leaving and what he told her about why it had happened. The ladies looked at one another, confused, and shook their heads in disagreement. One of them said that what she was told was not what happened at all. They told her it was actually her father who got involved with another woman. He had fallen in love with the new woman and wanted a more serious relationship with her. Mary's sisters explained that someone had given him the idea to shame her mother and his wife and kick her out. He figured that once she had gone, he would be able to have an open relationship with his new lover, who of which was already carrying his child. Mary was appalled that her father had the audacity to lie to her face about the matter, thinking she wouldn't find the truth. She was ashamed of him and was angered that he would disrespect their family name. They spent the day at the lagoon. When it came a time where it was time to head home, Evelyn's cousin planned to make a detour to the fish market on the way back to the house. The market was right by the lagoon, not far from the beach. You could see its close proximity to the beach by looking at its white sand. The sand by Evelyn's grandfather's house was gray-tinted in contrast. Evelyn told her cousin her body still ached from the trip to the lagoon and didn't want to ride the horse. There was no other way to take her home, so he placed her in front of him with her legs to his left side. It was still a bit difficult for Evelyn because the horse was slippery where she was sitting, but her cousin held her and made sure she didn't fall. They didn't go fast, and for part of the ride, She held onto the horse's mane, steering, which she liked. Evelyn liked the smell of fish, and lucky for her, there was lots of it at the market. She thought the pink color of some of the fish was pretty and wondered if they tasted just as nice as they looked. It was odd because they were dead, but she still thought they were pretty to look at. Despite Evelyn's interest in the pink-colored fish, her uncle chose a different kind, the cará, a tilapia kind of fish that many liked because of its meaty flesh and low cost. It wasn't as pretty as the other kind of fish Evelyn looked at, but he told her its flesh was tasty and that since it was cheap, they could trade almost anything in exchange for enough to feed everyone at the house, leaving enough extra that there would be leftovers to eat the next day. That night, they prepared the fish on the grill and ate it with baião de dois, which is rice cooked inside seasoned bean juice mixed with the beans. The day after, they made fish stew and pirão, which is the term used when you cook cassava flour inside the fish stew sauce. Mary felt queasy after finishing her pirão, and her sister watched the children while she went to a hammock in the shade to lay down. She fell asleep after a while, but woke up feeling worse than she had before she took her nap. That same day, she told her father and sisters that she was going back home, saying that she was going to go to the doctor if the nausea persisted. She was glad she was able to make this trip and that her daughters got to experience it with her, and they left the next day with very happy hearts. Peace was enraged when Mary informed him she might be pregnant again. Mary had still been feeling unwell even after leaving the farm. She intended to request a blood draw from her doctor to determine whether or not she was right about her growing suspicion. Peace complained that they hardly had enough money to feed the family as is, and they didn't need another expense from one more human. Mary sobbed silently while he proceeded to rant about how much money was necessary to support their family, money they didn't have. "I don't want another child," he said. "You should know better." Looking at her like this was completely obvious, Mary's mind wandered to the rumors going around the neighborhood about Peace having another family besides the one he had with Mary. She never confronted him about it because she wanted to pretend she never heard the story to begin with. Rumor had it that Peace had a daughter about the age of Ellen, and she looked like Evelyn with another woman. Mary covered her face with her hands, weeping but making no sound. She tried to convince herself that she was going to be okay. She was going to find a way to cover the new baby's expenses. After she thought about it for days, Mary decided she was going to learn to sew. She talked to a seamstress, and the kind woman lent Mary a sewing machine. She said that she would give Mary a job if she took a course to learn the patterns for essential clothing items and how to operate a manual sewing machine at optimum speed and accuracy. Mary knew that there was a free sewing class for manufacturing families at the complex where Evelyn attended grade school. So she went to gather information after dropping Evelyn in her classroom. She presented them with her Manufacturing Association ID card and was able to enroll in classes scheduled for the following month. The class was in the evening, so she asked one of the neighbors, a teenage girl, to watch Evelyn and Ellen. She told her she didn't have money to pay her, but if she was patient, she could make her a nice dress once she had her work figured out, and the girl thankfully agreed. Mary found the classes interesting and she learned many useful skills. The teachers provided all the materials and patterns and even allowed her to bring the projects home as homework. Evelyn enjoyed watching her mother cut the fabric on top of their kitchen table. While Mary went through this whole ordeal, Peace never said a thing about it, besides telling her that she had to make sure he always had his food ready and his clothes washed and pressed. But he didn't seem to care about much else. Once Mary finished the course, her final graduation project looked professional enough that the seamstress was pleased with it, and soon enough, she received the manual sewing machine, fabric, and everything else she would need for the job. Mary was allowed to keep the machine at her house, and as long as she completed the orders on time, she was allowed to use the leftover fabric and thread to sew things for herself. In no time, she completed the dress she promised to make for the babysitter. On a special trip to the downtown fabric store, Mary got soft cotton in a variety of colors, low-grade linen, and many different colors and types of threads. It was time to make her new baby some clothes. Mary started to making the shirts. Some of the shirts she made were long-sleeved for rainy days, and some had short sleeves. Once the shirts were all completed, Mary would embroider cute designs and patterns on them. She chose gender-neutral colors like reds, greens, and yellows, since she didn't yet know the gender of her baby. When Evelyn saw the little baby clothes all neat and done with so much care, she was intrigued. She never saw her mother make children's clothing because most of her work was trousers for men. Evelyn cautiously approached the small pile of tiny shirts and asked her mother if she could touch them. Mary looked at her daughter and nodded, smiling. Then she asked, "Do you like them?" Evelyn observed the shirts for a second longer, touching the embroidery with intense delicacy before responding, "Very much. Do you think the baby would like them?" Evelyn looked at her mother bewildered. "What baby?" she asked. Mary touched her belly, and with a bright smile she said, "This baby." The morning of November 23rd was the same as any other morning, except it was Peace's birthday. The family woke up early to get ready for the day. Breakfast was made, Peace's lunch got packed, and both Evelyn and Peace left to start their walk towards the school and bus stop. A birthday is just like any other day when you are poor, Peace told Mary through the years. But now she knew it was his birthday, but nothing was said or done about it. Mary worked from her small porch and Ellen stayed home with her. They tried to send her to preschool at the beginning of the year, but she cried all day long, until they finally decided to take her out and keep her home until the next year, when they would try again. By then, she would be in kindergarten and more mature. While Mary worked, the babysitter entertained Ellen, keeping the small child from distracting her. Mary had become an exceptional seamstress and liked her job, even though it was a bit difficult to sit and sew for long hours with a 9-month belly. She had to take many breaks now to stand up and walk around. At noon, she paused her work so the three of them could have lunch. Mary was serving Ellen and the babysitter when her water broke. She asked the babysitter to take care of Ellen while she cleaned herself up and the mess around her. She quickly decided she was going to go to the hospital because her contractions were rapidly increasing. She changed clothes and picked up the bag she had put together for this exact moment, one of which had contained the baby's clothing, clean cloth diapers, and little socks along with another change of clothing for herself. She told the sitter which hospital she was going to and asked if she would walk to Miss Josie's house to let her know what was happening. And with that, Mary headed out the door. The walk to the bus stop was short, but to Mary it felt like she had been walking for ages. The heat of the sun was beating down on her in sizzling waves, and Mary's clothes were drenched with her sweat. The excruciating pain of the contractions made it nearly impossible for her to continue walking and remain calm. When she finally reached the bus stop, the pain dramatically hindered her ability to sit still and wait for the bus to arrive. She wasn't sure how long it would take for the bus to arrive, but she knew for certain that she couldn't wait for the bus in her current state. She needed to move to the next bus stop down the road, but she wasn't sure if her level of discomfort would hinder her journey. As she kept walking, she repeatedly missed many buses. She trudged on, only pausing to catch her breath on a wall or a tree when a contraction approached. She felt sick to her stomach and so uncomfortable due to the constant need to pee, which she couldn't hold much longer, having to relieve herself 3 times before reaching her destination. Time passed in slow motion, but 30 minutes later, she arrived at the hospital exhausted, drenched in sweat and pale. The nurses saw her approaching the hospital and rushed to her with a wheelchair and rolled her inside. Mary had had children before, so she knew what to expect, but still everything felt surreal. Her entire pregnancy was filled with turmoil. She was left to fend for herself from the beginning, feeling that she couldn't burden anyone with her struggles, doing what she thought to be necessary. This is to be her last child if Peace gets what he wishes. The nurses situated Mary, and the labor was well on its way. When the doctor came in, he examined Mary and told her she could have the baby normally as it was positioned properly in the birth canal, unlike her other previous daughters, where she was forced to opt for a C-section. He assured her that she would do just fine if she decided to proceed with a vaginal birth. She was dilated 6 centimeters already, and so she did. Meanwhile, Evelyn got home from school to find an empty house. Confused, she wondered what happened to everyone. She placed the bag down by her bed and headed towards her grandmother's house, where she found the sitter and Ellen. Miss Josie told her that her mother was at the hospital having the baby and that she was in good hands there. She had called Peace at his job at the factory and Gracious at the bank to let them both know what was happening. Gracious told her mother she was passing by Peace's job at the end of her shift to pick him up so they both could go to visit with Mary if possible, as they didn't know how far along she was in labor. Miss Josie told the sitter to go home after thanking her for her help all day. Now Evelyn and Ellen were home with their grandmother, and they were in good hands until Peace and Gracious returned from the maternity hospital with the news. When Gracious and Peace arrived at the hospital around 5:30 p.m., the receptionist told them that visiting hours were at 3 p.m. and that she needed approval to let them visit Mary. They explained how they had just heard about the delivery and came from work as fast as they could, but the answer was still the same. The doctor who had seen Mary came to greet them and told them both that Mary was fine. She delivered a healthy baby girl not long ago, but wasn't yet ready to have visitors. He said they could return the next day at regular visiting hours to see Mary and the new baby. Peace and Gracious left the hospital disappointed but happy to know she was fine. The little girl shared a birthday with her father, and Peace was certainly going to drink to that. Dinner was at Miss Josie's that night, and they waited until everyone was together, except for Mary, of course, to talk about the event of the day. Evelyn and her sister were happy to learn that the baby was another girl, just like them. Peace took the next day off, and Miss Josie prepared the baby's hammock right before it was time to go visit with them at the hospital. Peace went alone by bus, and Gracious asked him to call her from the hospital if they decided that Mary and the baby were ready to go home, so she could leave early from work to pick them up. Peace called his sister after 5 p.m., saying that they were ready to go home. Evelyn had been thinking about how her mother went to the hospital to have the baby, but there had been no previous discussion about what the name of the baby would be. She noticed the pattern of her and her sister's name, which reminded her of her best friend's name, Ella. Miss Josie was at Peace's home with the girls when they arrived. Everyone was elated that day, glowing from the new life. Before bedtime, Evelyn went to see her mother and the baby without the interference of everyone else. The little child's hands were so tiny and her eyes were closed. Evelyn looked from the baby to her mother and asked, "Can we name her Elle?" To her surprise, Mary agreed. Building Evelyn's original story, narration and production by Jackie Pesal. This chapter was written by Jackie Pesal and edited by Karen Mata. Music by Clark James. You can listen to his amazing music on Spotify, SoundCloud, and Google Play. To learn more, visit clarkjamespiano.com or find him on Facebook or Amazon. I hope you find this podcast entertaining. If you are interested in contributing a song or to write the next chapter of the story, submit an email at info@buildingevelyn.com and we will consider featuring it. If you want to get in touch with us, find us on WhatsApp at 513-580-4595. For more chapters, listen on your favorite podcast player, our YouTube channel, or head over to our website, buildingevelyn.com. That is BLDGEVELYN.com. And while you are there, consider clicking the donate link. That would be so nice of you.